Hey there, guys. This is just a short video on bench press and how to send your numbers north with sort of programming and being smart about it. So for me, and it depends a lot on the individual. An advanced lifter, you're going to find two working top sets works well, versus more when I'm coaching a beginner to intermediate. Four working sets will work well. There's also a video called the Beginner's Bench Press Program that's on this channel, and a lot of that stuff is obviously still really relevant, and that'll give you guys another good direction to move in. But for me, like, I warm up, and then I try and hit my top two working sets. And for me, I find two top working sets is enough to get substantial volume in with the weight that I'm using, but still leaving enough in the tank for me to recover adequately. As the weights get heavier as well, a little bit more muscle, fiber, tissue damage, but also, the demand on your nervous system is more because, you're more proficient at the movement pattern, and you're going to have a greater ability to activate, muscle tissue and a higher percent of your muscle mass on each working set. So having that in mind, I find, two good quality working sets is great. And then I will do two back off sets, sometimes with the same weights or a little bit less, but it's more technique focused. I'm not trying to, rep out as much as I can. My back off sets, I did two sets of, 5 at 180 kilos, and I'm really focusing on how the movement feels, because the next time I go under a heavy bar for bench press, the last thing I want my body to remember is how the weight moved, and how it felt. And, if the movement pattern is left in a clean state, I find it just sets me up well for the next training session. Then occasionally, I'll go and drop the weight further, maybe down to 100 kilos, and I'll do high rep out work. This serves two purposes. One, I get a little bit of muscular endurance in the area, which is, your strength endurance. But secondly, it pumps a whole lot of blood into the area. And again, I'm not taking this to failure either. I just want to pump a whole lot of blood into the area. Helps with recovery. If I had anything that was sort of not feeling quite right, if I focus on the movement pattern, keep everything nice and tight in position, and just press, well and methodically, I just find, again, it helps clean up the movement patterns, but, I just get to work whatever sort of felt slightly off, or I'm not going to say lagging, and I'm not going to say injured, but anything that didn't feel right, I sort of try and zone in and feel what's going wrong and just pump as much blood as I can into the area. Typically, I'll only do two sets of this because, again, I'm trying to limit overall total volume, because, the bench press is only one tool when you're trying to improve your bench press. And once you get to a certain level, that movement pattern should be, pretty well ingrained. You should be able to sort of bench, on demand, not sort of when you're feeling right. Any athlete needs to be able to perform on demand, not when they're feeling, 100%. So, keeping that in mind, bench press is a really good tool for increasing bench press, but then I also want to make sure that I'm leaving enough energy for the next day or later on in that session to hit my other movements, which are going to help, thoroughly increase the bench press. The two movements, well, possibly three movements that work really well for increasing my bench is one, the overhead barbell press, or overhead, one arm dumbbell press. You can alternate either or. I'm not really, fussed in that regard. As long as you're doing some form of overhead pressing, it just helps keep the shoulders balanced and strong. Gives you a lot more shoulder stability under load, which goes a long way in terms of injury prevention. When it comes to a barbell, overhead press, I only bring the bar down to my chin, so I'm avoiding any sort of internal rotation of the shoulder, as well as any excessive spinal extension in terms of leaning backwards. The other movement that I find goes really well with increasing my bench press is either your neutral grip pull-ups or normal pull-ups. You could do chin-ups to an extent, but I prefer pull-ups. And that's obviously with a pronated grip as opposed to chin-ups where, your hands are facing you. That's the supinated grip. You can do both if you want, but for me, I personally prefer the neutral grip chins, sort of somewhere in the middle. But thoroughly working your back just so you have a strong foundation to, lay up on when you're benching makes a big difference. And when I bench, I retract my scapula, so almost like the start of a row, how you pull your shoulder blades back. I try and mimic that on the bench when I'm setting up and try and hold position as much as I can, because the higher up my chest is, the more protection it's going to offer my shoulders as well. At that same time, I'm not trying to turn the movement into a circus joke either, as I want some, real quality functional strength. But a little bit of an arch, for me, when I'm coaching people as well, I'd probably say maximum, heels back in line with your glutes at an absolute max. That would be a really solid arch, and that'd be more of an arch than what I would be able to achieve currently. But you're still staying in the realm of, strength and a functional movement. So yeah, back development's going to help greatly with that. And the reason also I go with the pull-ups is simply because, one, it's not taxing on the lower back, because my other movement that I like doing is the front squats. And you might be thinking, what relevance does a front squat have to a bench press? And the relevance is, one, a new front squat and keep your chest up, so there's a lot of upper back recruitment and just general mid to lower back recruitment. So, you're learning to hold position. I find, just having the weight sit on my collarbones and then being able to take a deep breath and forcefully inhale and keep the weight sitting in position just carries across well to general setup on the bench press while under heavy load. And then the other reason would be, you train legs, you're going to release more hormones naturally for your body, which is going to have a carryover effect. And the front squat isn't too taxing on the nervous system either, because, when the weight starts to get heavy and you start to grind the reps out, especially if you're not holding the bar, as soon as your chest drops, you lose the bar forward. And it's sort of like an inbuilt, safety mechanism if you want. And it's going to prevent you from, running yourself into the ground from an overtraining perspective, especially when it comes to, your central nervous system. But, having decent legs is obviously going to help with stability. It's going to help with a better proportion physique, which is then going to, help, with an injury management point of view. So you run into less, injuries long term. That's pretty much it, guys. If you have any further questions relating to bench press or the rest, feel free to comment below. Otherwise, have a great day wherever you guys are.